A false peace blanketed the streets. The patrol cruiser screeched to a halt, and 2 guards emerged. Ahead, ruthless thugs circled a battered victim. The crimson-haired punk, humiliated earlier for striking a voiceless woman, now hungered for bloody, unyielding vengeance. He viciously stomped the fallen former captain. A guard charged forward to intervene, only to be violently pinned by a loyal lackey. The arrogant tyrant smirked. "Kneel and lick my boots, or I will shatter his arm." The desperate captain froze in despair. Suddenly, a shadow fell. Our main character stood resolute. "Touch him," he declared coldly, "and I will shatter your bones for winter kindling." The enraged mob attacked. He vanished in a blur. A symphony of devastating strikes left 4 goons instantly crushed. She, their furious boss, drew his weapon. "Die for defying the city guards," 3 deafening gunshots echoed. He intercepted the barrel mid-fire. "Pathetic," he mocked, crushing the steel barehanded. Desperate, she lunged with a deadly blade. Our hero effortlessly caught his wrist, disarmed him, and hoisted him up. "You demanded submission?" he growled darkly. "Now it is your turn." He ruthlessly smashed Shi into the concrete, instantly knocking him out. The remaining grunts froze, paralyzed by pure, unadulterated terror. The true origin of his overwhelming strength? A terrifying awakening mere months ago. No one could have foreseen that excavating a cryptic ruin would shatter a forbidden ancient seal. Consequently, this horrific mistake triggered humanity's greatest catastrophic apocalypse. A sinister, blood-colored mist aggressively swallowed the globe. Humans, engulfed by this bloody haze, mutated violently, descending into absolute fatal madness before dying horribly. Meanwhile, wildlife underwent horrific evolutions, mutating into nightmarish beasts wielding unnatural powers. Branded as anomalies, these hellish fiends marched forward, reducing once great metropolises to pure ash. Apocalyptic panic infected everyone. Desperate military strikes rained missiles upon the cities, burying everything under choking, suffocating smoke. Amidst the rubble, a ghastly zombie-like figure wielding a monstrous mutated claw endlessly searched for Shuer. Shadowy wolf mutants cornered him, but his singular obsession drove him to tear them apart relentlessly. Exhausted and broken, his remaining sanity teetered. He dragged his feet through the endless wreckage like a corpse, until a tiny doll caught his eye. Heart pounding, he desperately staggered toward the forgotten toy. His monstrous claw reached out, but he violently fought the mutation. Reverting to his regular human hand, he gently grasped the tiny doll. As devastating, silent tears suddenly fell. A soul-crushing question plagued his shattered mind. Where was she? Exactly 3 days prior, frantic news reports warned of a mysterious blood mist engulfing several zones. Authorities foolishly commanded citizens to barricade indoors and avoid panic. Elsewhere, an ordinary family traveled the chaotic highways. The innocent siblings remained fast asleep in the back seat. Heavily armed soldiers slammed aggressively against their windows, screaming commands to evacuate the vehicle instantly. Gripping the steering wheel tight, the father cursed the corrupt politicians, while his terrified wife braced herself. The trembling younger sister confessed her absolute terror. Her protective older brother warmly swore he would safely defend her, no matter what horrors came. As their father raged about military cover-ups disguising the apocalypse as natural disasters, the brother sensed an overwhelming outside presence. A deep, unsettling curiosity grew regarding that ominous crimson fog. Suddenly, an earth-shattering detonation erupted. Shocked, the older brother instinctively threw his body over his little sister, screaming for her to hide. A crushed vehicle violently smashed onto their roof. Panic-stricken, the son checked on his family, only to find his father trapped and his mother coughing up blood. She frantically asked what happened. Suddenly, a terrifying roar echoed. Sheer, unadulterated dread instantly painted their faces. Civilians were fleeing in absolute terror from a grotesque anomaly. The desperate father commanded his children to escape instantly. Forcing the jammed door open, the son scrambled outside. He frantically clawed at his mother's door, but the warped metal resisted. "Leave us and save your sister," she pleaded, but he stubbornly refused. Meanwhile, his sister shivered uncontrollably as the nightmarish beast stalked a helpless, doomed victim. The doomed man shrieked in bloody agony. Realizing the fatal proximity of the beast, their terrified mother begged him to run. With a strained, tearful voice, his father declared his final, heavy wish. Protect your sister at all costs. They entrusted little Shuer entirely to him. Suddenly, a devastating shockwave blew them back. The anomaly had pounced onto their trapped vehicle. Shuer shrieked in absolute heartbreak for her parents. The piercing cries enraged the bloodthirsty monstrosity, instantly targeting them. The weeping girl lunged toward the wreckage, but her brother violently dragged her away. Above the apocalyptic chaos, a winged beast shredded a military aircraft. They sprinted for their very lives. All around them, the crimson mist plunged innocent civilians and rabid animals into bloodthirsty madness. The terrified brother mentally screamed, What absolute nightmare had swallowed reality? A dense, bloody fog blinded the streets as a rabid wolf fiend prowled. Crouched, trembling behind shattered debris, the breathless brother watched the monstrous beast finally stalk away. A brief sigh of relief escaped his lips, until his sister suddenly convulsed, agonizingly clutching her splitting head. Frantic, he begged to know what was wrong. She whimpered in dizzying pain. Glancing at a cracked mirror, he froze. Sinister crimson veins were violently crawling across her innocent face. He realized the cursed crimson mist they inhaled was taking its devastating toll. Snatching supplies from the shelf, he soaked a cloth, desperately sealing his little sister's breathing. Suddenly, searing agony erupted within him. A terrifying, unstoppable power violently clawed its way out. Shu cried out in worry, but he masked his suffering, desperately suppressing his violently shaking hands. A prowling wolf aberration caught their scent. He screamed at his mutating body, terrifying Shu. The beast's bloodthirsty gaze locked on. Fleeing the ruins, their escape was violently blocked by a winged nightmare, completely surrounded by monsters. He shielded his sister, whispering desperate reassurances against the looming death. The winged demon unleashed an ear-shattering roar, summoning a horde of bloodthirsty mutations from the shadows. A colossal crimson dragon blotted out the sky. Utter despair crushed the brother's very soul. Spoiler alert. This is our main character, so prepare for epic awakening. Retreating inside, he dragged Shu away from the deadly open field. Gripping a fragile pipe, he declared it their final stand. He fearlessly charged, but the weapon shattered instantly, leaving him totally exposed to the beast's deadly fangs. Pinned down, he desperately wrestled its crushing jaw. Shu fired a scavenged crossbow to save him. Enraged, the bleeding monster viciously turned its sights onto her. "Run!" he roared with everything he had. "Never look back!" he commanded as she fled. Coughing up dark blood, agonizing torment paralyzed him. Disastrous timing. Shu stumbled, the bloodthirsty wolf mere inches away. Dragging his broken body upward, a blinding crimson pillar of energy violently erupted into the heavens. Crushing debris pinned the beast. Surging with raw adrenaline, he mercilessly drove a jagged rebar through its skull. "Go to hell!" he roared, stabbing relentlessly. Witnessing this sheer savagery, terror gripped Shu's trembling heart. She desperately embraced his blood-soaked body. This terrifying, unhinged version of her brother deeply frightened her. Her gentle reassurances broke his bloodlust. Suddenly, agonizing flashbacks of their parents' final sacrifice flooded his mind. Their dying wish echoed, protect Shu at all costs. His father's final heartbreaking command was to survive the apocalypse. Shu's crying voice pierced his trauma. Snapping back to reality, he felt her desperately clinging to his chest. Swallowing his guilt, he apologized. Just as he claimed he was fine, a monstrous winged shadow silently descended behind Shu. He violently tackled her, dodging a lethal strike. The demonic bird's murderous aura locked onto its new prey. Swinging the bloodied rebar with explosive force, he brutally smashed the beast, sending it crashing backward. "Hide!" he commanded, preparing to face it alone. Despite her desperate protests, he had to lure the massive predator away. Shu desperately gripped his shirt. The terrifying memory of his monstrous berserker rage deeply haunted her. Gently stroking her hair, he promised to maintain his sanity. "Stay hidden. I will return," he swore solemnly. Sealing their vow of survival, he boldly stepped out of the shadows, facing the terrifying abyss alone. He theorized a dark truth. Devouring their crimson aura granted immense power. This giant beast would be his ultimate feast. By slaughtering this monstrosity, he would forge the ultimate strength to shield his only remaining family. "Die!" he roared fearlessly. The arrogant boss monster sneered, dispatching its lowly wolf minions, deeming him completely worthless. Cleaving through the wolf pack with devastating strikes, his brutal rampage was stalled by their coordinated, deadly formation. A cowardly ambush! Fangs sank deep into his arm. Blazing fury ignited, violently mutating his very hands into demonic claws. Ripping through flesh with his newfound monstrous talons, a terrifying, ecstatic thrill of absolute power consumed his soul. A sudden military chopper ripped through the sky. The boss monster surprisingly abandoned the battlefield, leaving him utterly bewildered. His sanity flickered back, terrified by his mutated hands. Suddenly, a deadly missile screamed directly toward his position. "Brother!" Shu stepped out into the open. Absolute dread froze his heart. "Get back!" he screamed, just as hellfire detonated. The chopper descended for rescue. But spotting his terrifying demonic mutations, the military brutally discarded him as infected trash. Instead, they forcefully grabbed Shu. Through his violently fading consciousness, our main character watched them abduct his crying sister. Fleeing the approaching monster horde, the chopper ascended. Reaching out with a monstrous, desperate claw, darkness finally swallowed his vision. Her weeping, heartbroken voice haunted his dreams. Engulfed in nightmare flames, she agonizingly screamed, demanding why he abandoned her. Grasping wildly at the fading phantom, he violently gasped awake. The exact same soul-crushing nightmare torturing him yet again. 6 agonizing months of relentless searching. Panting heavily, he was just thankful his monstrous secret remained hidden while sleeping. He emerged from the shadows, gripping a heavy machine gun tight. After those bastards took Zua, he tore through every local shelter, but she vanished without a trace. Driven to find his sister, he enlisted in the bottom-tier border patrol as a lowly grunt. In this ruined world, only the military possessed the authority to move freely and gather intelligence. He finally reached the desolate Chishi border outpost. He casually greeted Patrol Captain Jia Jun, offering a half-hearted apology for his tardiness. Jun answered with a brutal kick. Annoyed by his constant slacking, Jun watched him slowly scale the towering ladder. Meanwhile, a comrade muttered that once the elite brass finally arrived, their grueling shift would come to an end. The captain snarled a final warning. One mistake, and he would endure a living nightmare. 6 months prior, the apocalyptic Crimson Mist erupted. Flourishing cities crumbled into wastelands, becoming breeding grounds for nightmarish aberrations. Alongside that deadly fog, an ominous crimson spire pierced the heavens. Humanity's shattered remnants now clung to survival in the desolate borderlands, hiding far away from the spire in suffocating mist, gazing at the ruined metropolis from his high vantage point. He wondered if that colossal aberration still lurked in the shadows. Jun scoffed, confidently claiming the elite special response unit already had everything perfectly handled. And honestly, if those absolute legends fell, mere grunts like them could not change fate anyway. Whispers of the legendary response unit echoed among them. A soldier questioned his pessimism. After all, the elite squad had been ruthlessly slaughtering monsters along their entire route. Meanwhile, our main character perched on the cliff, disgusted by the foul stench of the Crimson Mist. That fog awakened primal bloodlust, forcing creatures into mindless slaughter. Suddenly, the dense red fog violently split apart. A terrifying presence was charging straight toward them. Another panicked soldier spotted the anomaly and frantically alerted the captain. But Jun just angrily scolded him for overreacting. But then the crimson tide violently surged forward. The so-called elite special unit was sprinting away in absolute terror. The patrolmen demanded answers, but the fleeing elites just screamed at them to run. Jun frantically ordered a full retreat, as the deadly mist devoured the special ops. Suddenly, the captain shrieked in terror as his clothing got snagged. A monstrous, dragon-like aberration sank its vicious talons into his hood. In that split second, he accepted his doom. Hearing their desperate cries, our main character leaped from the towering cliff. He slammed down like a meteor, instantly crushing the beast. A second beast glared at the impact. Instantly, his hands morphed into deadly weapons. The monster lunged to devour him, but he brutally tore its head clean off. A strange red aura flowed into him, surging his veins with newfound power. A wicked thought crossed his mind. What if he consumed more? Right then, 6 terrifying aberrations completely surrounded him. His anticipation skyrocketed for a bloody feast. But before he could strike, a devastating energy beam suddenly vaporized the monsters. He traced the blast to its source. A silver-haired woman stood there, eyes wide in shock. It was the legendary Blazing Blood Captain, Song Rui. He instantly recognized the elite unit uniform. Alarm bells rang in his head. This situation was extremely bad for him. He desperately reverted his monstrous hands to normal. Rui coldly ordered her squad to eliminate all threats. Surrounded by armed soldiers, he threw his hands up, begging for mercy. He frantically identified himself as Private Yan Hao of the patrol unit. But at 12 o'clock sharp, gunshots rang out. The bullets ripped past him, obliterating a lurking aberration at his back. The elite squad confirmed the target was eliminated. Rui stepped forward, demanding to know where his weapon was. He was completely doomed. Before Hao could lie, the elite comms crackled to life. Command ordered an immediate fallback to the temporary defensive line. Nobody could enter without Officer Song's direct authorization. Inside the command tent, the grim reality set in. Rui reviewed the report. 37 lives lost. The bloody toll included 2 elites from the Ember Blood Squad and 30 unfortunate souls from the Border Patrol. With the grim casualty briefing over, Hao desperately demanded to know why he was locked up like a criminal. He protested his innocence, claiming to be a victim. But Rui coldly read the log. At 17:23, he had abandoned his post for 2 hours. Moments after his return, the catastrophic Crimson Mist riot erupted. She offered him one single chance to justify his actions. His mind raced to spin a believable lie, but only nervous stutters escaped his lips. He finally claimed he was napping in the ruins, supposedly with the captain's blessing. But a traitorous teammate quickly exposed his chronic tardiness and the captain's leniency. Fury flared within Hao at this blatant betrayal. He shot the snitch a murderous glare, silently promising a slow, painful death. The terrified soldier begged Hao not to frame their captain. Rui quickly deduced that this border patrol unit was an absolute disaster. Miles away, Captain June let out a violent sneeze. The captain lay covered in blood-stained bandages, though doctors promised he would survive. Shockingly, his medical scans showed nothing out of the ordinary. However, the surviving comrade at his bedside stared in disbelief. Could this truly be considered normal? Inside the command tent, Rui scanned his unbelievable file. He had barely cleared basic training 3 months prior. Yet in the previous bloodbath, elite forces were wiped out. Somehow, Hao walked away unscathed. Playing the fool, he claimed absolute terror kept him alive, bragging that his high school track skills gave him unmatched speed. He swore that the moment the terrifying crimson mist rolled in, he bolted. Her gaze sharpened, demanding why a supposed coward would dare enlist in the military. She interrogated him, sensing a much darker hidden agenda. For 6 grueling months of searching, our main character survived by relentlessly slaughtering and devouring the core energy of lower-tier aberrations. He had finally mastered shifting between his human shell and monstrous beast form, prowling the desolate wasteland like a lone wolf for half a year. Relying on pure primal instinct, he scoured shattered ruins and hunted through every surviving human settlement. Rui's military pride flared, branding him a pathetic coward desperately clinging to survival. His blatant desertion and buried secrets fueled her blazing fury. She warned him that military law was unforgiving. Staring back, he casually asked if an execution was imminent. Leaning in terrifyingly close, she chillingly whispered about his monstrous hands. The secret was out. She furiously demanded the absolute truth behind his ultimate goal. A violent tremor suddenly shattered their tense standoff. While she braced for an earthquake, Hao instantly recognized that sinister vibration. Springing to his feet, he screamed at her to run. A massive, bloodthirsty horde of aberrations was surging forward. Her pride stung as he dared to flee right before her very eyes. Treating her like empty air, he bolted, forcing her to ruthlessly slam him down. Her squad watched in sheer terror, thinking their commander had snapped. The soldiers begged her to hold back before the fragile earth shattered. Instantly, the ground caved in, plunging them all into a pitch-black subterranean abyss. Rui quickly commanded illumination. One soldier cursed Hao as a cursed omen. Disaster simply followed his every footstep. Hao coolly suggested saving their complaints until they survived. The terrified grunt seriously doubted they would ever see daylight again. Flares ignited the darkness, revealing a horrific underground labyrinth carved by monster claws. Rui sternly ordered the squad to steady their breathing and load their weapons. She barked orders to tighten their battle formation and watch their blind spots. Suddenly, an eerie draft swept through. Hao's sharp primal instincts flared up instantly. His squadmate nervously questioned his sudden hyperfocus. He calmly stated he caught the faint sound of a breeze. Hope surged as the soldier desperately dashed forward, praying for an exit. He practically cheered upon feeling the fresh current of air. He praised the main character, declaring the kid an absolute genius at escaping death. Better yet, a faint glimmer of light pierced the shadows ahead. Blinded by the thrilling hope of salvation, he let his guard down completely. He completely missed the nightmare-inducing aberration stalking right behind his back. Rui screamed for him to duck. Her gun roared, decapitating the foul beast as toxic green blood narrowly missed the terrified soldier. That acidic beetle fluid could melt solid bone. She furiously chewed out the careless grunt for breaking military protocol and rushing blindly. She realized Hao possessed terrifyingly sharp survival instincts. She coldly promised that survival meant a full interrogation about his hidden secrets. Hao mentally calculated her true intentions. She held his deadly secret in her grasp, yet strategically kept her mouth shut. Suddenly, a bone-chilling skittering echoed through the abyss. An overwhelming wave of deadly aberrations was closing in. Countless monstrous insects swarmed from the cavern walls, spelling utter disaster. As the deadly swarm closed in, the squad unleashed heavy, suppressing fire while retreating. Suddenly, Hao's monstrous intuition spiked. Rui roared at him to keep his legs moving, but he froze. The entire insect tide had mysteriously halted. The terrified men stared ahead. A truly colossal nightmare aberration blocked their path. It was a legendary Dominator-class beast. It had gorgeously absorbed the chaotic crimson mist, refining that deadly aura into pure, destructive battle energy. Hao roared, a desperate warning about its lethal threat level. Rui's rifle blazed just as the monstrous beast unleashed a devastating shockwave of raw power. Facing that apocalyptic blast, Rui stood paralyzed. Luckily, our main character flawlessly tanked the lethal strike using his terrifyingly mutated beast arm. Her eyes widened in absolute shock. Flashing a fierce grin, he promised a full confession about his dark powers if they actually survived this hellhole. Unleashing his aura, his other arm violently mutated into a beastly weapon. Watching her strongest firepower fail, she desperately prayed his hidden strength was enough. She urged extreme caution. Nodding fiercely, He exploded forward, charging straight at the titanic monster. This hulking Dominator class sparked memories of a past nightmare hunt. The terrifying evolutionary hierarchy ranged from Scout and Hound up to Dominator, Colossus, and Catastrophe. A predatory hunger flared up. He craved the immense evolutionary power this monster's core could provide. Landing a devastating blow, he cursed its insanely tough hide. A lesser creature would have instantly shattered into a million bloody pieces under that strike. Its mountainous physique resembled a heavily fortified tank. To forge such unbreakable armor, it must have ruthlessly cannibalized countless lesser mutations. The massive beast struck, but he vanished like a phantom, coldly mocking its pathetically sluggish speed. Realizing the monster sacrificed all agility for pure defense, he smirked. It was absolutely nothing but a massive, incredibly slow punching bag. The stunned soldiers provided cover fire, their minds completely blown. They simply could not fathom that the squad's most cowardly track star was actually this legendary powerhouse. They frantically questioned Yan Hao's true identity. Covering his back, Rui lied, declaring him a top-secret government bioweapon engineered specifically to butcher alien threats. Shock rippled through them. Was this really the same washout who spent 3 months failing basic training? The notorious coward, always first to flee danger, was actually a living anti-beast weapon. Eyes shifted to Rui. Did she know his hidden secret? She admitted her suspicions were confirmed when he intercepted that fatal strike. A heavy silence fell. Deputy Officer Lin Yongji scoffed. Did the Special Forces truly harbor such monstrous experiments within their ranks? Or was Captain Rui concealing deeper secrets? She revealed his escape from the labs, never expecting his infiltration of the Border Patrol. Yongji narrowed his eyes. Was Hao responsible for the recent Crimson Mist disaster? She couldn't deny the possibility. That was exactly why he remained under her strict surveillance. Her tone turned icy. This was classified Special Ops intel. A single leaked word would mean absolute treason. The trembling patrolman nodded in absolute submission. Suddenly, devastating energy coalesced within the monstrous aberration's jaws. A concentrated orb of pure destruction fired. A death sentence. Yongji roared to scatter as the earth shattered. Rui narrowly escaped the blast. The stunned grunt checked his pulse, realizing Yongji had violently yanked him from death, but at a terrible cost. The deputy's leg was mangled, yet Yongji brushed off the gruesome wound. Tears welled in the grunt's eyes. Why would an elite Special Forces officer sacrifice everything for a worthless foot soldier? Yongji flashed a pained smirk. Trading a leg for a comrade's life? An absolute steal. Guilt consumed the patrolman. How could they slay the beast with their strongest fighter now permanently crippled? Yongji's resolve blazed. He didn't enlist merely to slaughter monsters. As humanity's ultimate shield, he would never abandon his own. Awe silenced the grunt. Meanwhile, Hao was violently hurled like a mere ragdoll. His crimson aura flickered and died. He lacked the energy to sustain even a partial transformation. Staring down a Dominator-class steel shield Thornbug, he finally understood the sheer terror of elite aberrations. The Dominator-class monstrosity unleashed an ear-shattering roar. It lunged for Hao, only to be blasted by Rui's devastating crossfire. She screamed that his life wasn't his to lose. He owed them answers. In response, the demonic insect actually chuckled. A chilling realization hit Rui. Fresh, pulsating crimson mist was vomiting from the cavern depths. The underground labyrinth acted as an energy pipeline. The beast was siphoning mist to instantly regenerate its lost power. Horrifyingly, its shattered armor began knitting back together. Soon, it would return to its absolute peak condition. The puzzle pieces snapped into place. This exact creature orchestrated the deadly outpost eruption. Defeat seemed inevitable. She ordered a full retreat, but Hao's eyes burned with killer intent. The ambient mist recharged his veins. The beast was anchored by its healing process. It was their perfect opening, but failure meant absolute death. He had danced with the Grim Reaper countless times. One more meant nothing. Catching his feral grin, Rui fully committed. She channeled every ounce of her remaining power. Her target? Obliterating its impenetrable cranial armor. Hao would serve as the executioner, plunging straight into its exposed brain. It was all or nothing. She pulled the trigger. Hao exploded forward like a bullet. Rui's devastating barrage found its mark, violently tearing the beast's armored skull apart. Seizing the opening, Hao descended like a wrathful god. He unleashed a storm of merciless strikes, painting the earth with toxic green blood. Through the settling dust, Rui prayed for victory. Hao plummeted from the lifeless carcass, hitting the dirt hard. She sprinted over. Panic laced her voice. A solitary photograph fluttered down upon his chest. In her haste, she completely missed the obsidian crystal gripped in his palm. The jagged stone violently fused with his flesh. Trapped within his own mind, he watched helplessly as a terrifying foreign presence hijacked him. The horrifying truth hit him. He had completely beastified. Disoriented in this spiritual void, was he experiencing his final dying moments? Suddenly, an ethereal, pulsating DNA helix illuminated the absolute darkness. Control slowly seeped back into his limbs. A strange weight manifested within his chest. It was the very core harvested from the giant beast. This pure, crystallized energy defied logic. How did a stone held in his palm mysteriously implant itself directly into his heart? Instantly, the core greedily devoured the volatile crimson mist, acting as a flawless internal reservoir. A total game changer. He could gorge on endless mist and trigger deeper beast transformations without the fatal risk of losing his sanity. The crystal was the ultimate failsafe. Should madness take him, it would instantly siphon the corrupted energy and forcefully reboot his consciousness. Now, he could devour aberrations indiscriminately, catapulting his evolution to godlike heights. Holding back during combat was finally history. But reality crashed down. The core's capacity wasn't infinite. Pushing past its absolute limit meant fatal detonation. A sudden realization struck him. That monstrous insect's final attack had devoured an ocean of crimson mist. Mimicking its dark power, he drew the blood-red energy inward. Meanwhile, his unconscious body rested quietly in a clinical ward. Scarlet vapor pulsed heavily from his chest. His eyes snapped open, condensing the swirling red aura directly into his palm. Just then, Rui walked in. Her eyes widened in sheer panic, while he frantically roared at her to hit the deck. The volatile aura detonated, unleashing a catastrophic shockwave. Just 5 minutes prior, a guard had briefed Rui on Youngji's shattered leg. She had coldly dismissed the guard's guilt, stating firmly that soldiers must always embrace the fatal risks of the battlefield. Stepping into Youngji's room, she faced his immediate questions. He demanded the truth about how, completely unaware of any secret human experiments. Snatching his datapad, she declared it highly classified. She ordered her subordinate to prioritize healing over digging into military shadows. Furthermore, she dropped the bomb that his mandatory reassignment was already in motion. He was being exiled to headquarters logistics, forcing him to step back and finally recover away from the bloody front lines. Defiant, he threatened to escalate the cover-up directly to her father, the esteemed Chief of Staff Song Lian. Confident the commander would side with reason, his words only ignited her wrath. Asserting dominance, she instantly revoked his communication access. Now practically placed under house arrest, he could only watch her march off toward Ward 314 to confront Hao. Arriving at the target room, she stationed a guard outside. Strict orders were given to execute lethal lockdown protocols immediately. But the second she pushed the door open, she found Hao wielding a dangerously unstable sphere of raw energy. Caught completely off guard, he screamed for her to run, even as she demanded an explanation for the swirling chaos. The raging power broke free. She dove instantly as the blinding beam erupted, sending the hallway guard flying from the sheer shockwave. The apocalyptic laser pierced through 3 buildings, cleanly slicing the final concrete structure perfectly in half. Witnessing the gaping hole from his window, Youngji suspected Hao's monstrous strength. How long could Rui possibly sweep this apocalyptic mess under the rug? Outside, the terrified guard violently trembled, cursing his awful luck for surviving such absolute destruction. He screamed for backup, desperate to live. Meanwhile, Rui instantly realized the blast mirrored the deceased aberration's signature attack. How could a bare human wield monster-class abilities without equipping any specialized beastification armor? Demanding absolute answers for the chaos. She escorted him to the desolate hospital rooftop for a tense interrogation. Connecting the dots, she deduced his terrifying secret. He was absorbing beast cores and stealing their monstrous talents. He confessed the evolution went deeper. His body could stockpile endless crimson mist, and his crystal cores rapidly regenerated themselves. A predatory smirk formed on her lips as he joked about having way too many monstrous new features. Sure, he possessed ungodly strength, but a terrifying dread clawed at his heart. Was the monster blood consuming him? Could he even call himself human anymore? He desperately sought her judgment. Staring back, she declared his existence a miracle. Humanity or monstrosity simply depended on where he aimed his blade. Recognizing his aura as both a walking calamity and an ultimate weapon, she presented 2 brutal choices. Swear absolute loyalty as a blazing blood reserve operative or face immediate extermination as a hostile monster-class threat. He scoffed, openly challenging the bold execution threat. She openly confessed the local garrisons were too weak to kill him, yet she warned that challenging the elite unit solo was pure suicide. Changing tactics, she tempted him with the immense perks of military status and highly classified intelligence. She promised endless combat resources, vowing to act as a flawless shield against any future political backlash. A wry smile escaped him. Why would a high-ranking officer gamble everything on an unstable, volatile stranger like him? Such a golden ticket carried hidden blood debts. He instantly sensed her secret agenda, a sharp intuition that thoroughly impressed the battle-hardened captain. Dropping the facade, she confessed her desperate need for his anomalous strength, swearing they stood on the same battlefield. Framing it as a mutually beneficial pact, she suddenly slammed down a holographic photo of him and his long-lost sister. Her gaze turned icy. Unearthing his deepest, most guarded secrets was merely a warm-up exercise for her elite intelligence network. She then delivered the ultimate condition for entering the legendary Blazing Blood ranks. Pledge his life, and she would weaponize the military's apex spy network to track down his precious family. Reality crashed down on Hao. Wandering the dark alleys alone would never bring his sister home. She was absolutely right. Military authority would shatter locked doors, granting him the supreme clearance needed to scour forbidden territories. He shook on the devil's bargain, but boldly demanded a premium salary bump, shamelessly admitting his relentless search had drained his bank accounts dry. Sealing his fate, the fierce captain instantly promoted him to an elite reserve operative, blessing him with top-tier military wealth and untouchable privileges. With a sharp glare, she ordered him to leave and finalize the transfer paperwork. Obeying her command, he immediately departed for the patrol base to process the transfer. But before stepping out, she paused. She coldly announced that his hospital destruction costs would be heavily drained directly from his upcoming paychecks. Her eyes narrowed with fierce determination to save her uncle. Meanwhile, our main character stood frozen, completely shattered by his impending debt. Rui sensed deep within that this boy possessed the legendary secret to reversing monstrous aberrations back into humanity. Days later at the Chishi City Patrol Garrison, Hao discovered a fellow officer was also ascending to the elite response force. The rookie bragged proudly about receiving high praise from the captain and deputy Youngji. Despite being assigned to logistics, the guy radiated teamwork confidence. Honestly, Hao could not even recall this background character's name. He truly never paid him much attention. Suddenly, the rookie spotted Captain Jun, and the sight was absolutely devastating. Hao turned slowly. Jun stood crippled, his right arm and left leg brutally shattered, a stark contrast to the fierce muscular hero from before. Now, the once proud commander was reduced to a stray dog, desperately begging the city guards for his squad's rightful pension. A vicious kick suddenly struck the injured veteran. The attacker was Zhang Shi, the arrogant city captain. Boiling with rage, Hao's companion charged forward, only to be instantly pinned by two guards, screaming for his captain's release. Shi viciously grabbed Jun by the jaw and spat venomously. He demanded the veteran lick his boots clean, threatening to snap the young rookie's arm to use as a makeshift crutch. Gritting his teeth in pure humiliation, Jun prepared to kneel. But a strong hand caught him. Hao declared coldly that bowing was unnecessary. Jun gasped in sheer shock. Hao offered a warm smile, stating it was finally time to repay the massive debt of his past guidance. Unleashing his oppressive aura, Hao swore that if anyone harmed the captain further, he would absolutely shatter their bones into firewood. Fury ignited everyone. Screaming about courting death, the mob violently lunged forward. Hao smoothly dodged every strike. A swift kick, a crushing elbow. He shattered the third guard's knee, delivered a devastating gut punch, and sent the final attacker flying violently into the concrete wall. In one breathtaking second, the squad was annihilated. A terrified lackey screamed that Captain Shi was an elite E-rank warrior. They promised Hao a brutal death. Yet internally, Shi broke out in a cold sweat, stunned his squad vanished in mere seconds. This monstrous speed was terrifying. Trembling slightly, Shi quickly aimed his deadly firearm at Hao. Outraged that mere patrol trash dared defy the elite guards, he mercilessly unloaded 3 gunshots. Blurring forward, Hao casually seized the smoking barrel, mocking the painfully slow firing speed. Pathetically slow. Hao effortlessly crushed the solid steel pistol barehanded. He sneered, declaring this garbage speed could not even rival 1% of Rui. Boiling with absolute madness, Shi drew a lethal dagger, but Hao instantly trapped his wrist. Discarding the blade, Hao hoisted Shi by the throat. Recalling the humiliating kneeling demand, his grip tightened relentlessly, sending the arrogant captain into suffocating panic. Hao's eyes glowed with lethal intent. Now, it was your turn. He viciously slammed the captain face first into the unforgiving earth. The tyrant instantly blacked out, foaming pathetically at the mouth. The surviving grunts froze in sheer horror. Evading point-blank gunfire and crushing military-grade steel barehanded was simply impossible. Internally, Hao marveled at his beast core's overwhelming power. To the terrified defense guards, he was no longer human, he was an absolute monster. The cowards fled instantly. Retrieving the fallen crutch, Hao was approached by the awestruck rookie, who worshipped him like an absolute god of war. Hao asked if he survived all right. The kid grinned, boasting his body could easily take the beating. Returning the crutch to Jun, the veteran whispered his gratitude. But Hao gently smiled, insisting no thanks were needed after years of loyal mentorship. Protecting his senior was simply his absolute duty. However, Jun's eyes clouded with intense dread, fearing massive retaliation from the vengeful city defense forces. The rookie excitedly interrupted, declaring they had 0 things to fear. Both he and Hao were officially elite Special Response Unit members now. Those lowly city guards would never dare touch untouchable Special Unit elites. By nightfall at the Chishi City Special Forces base, Rui questioned if his transfer documents were finalized. Hao confidently confirmed. She proudly announced that top command at headquarters had officially reviewed and miraculously approved his elite squad application. Stunned by this lightning-fast efficiency, Hao eagerly asked if he was finally recognized as an official elite operative. "Contain your excitement," she warned coldly. The true trial awaited. He needed to depart immediately for Hucheng's capital base to conquer the brutal Combat Division entry assessment. She confidently believed his overwhelming power would effortlessly crush the exams. Bursting with fiery confidence, Hao vowed to completely shatter the historic Hucheng records. As their heavy armored transport rolled out, Rui revealed that Hucheng stood as the ultimate capital of special forces. The legendary Blazing Blood headquarters resided there. Hao trembled, knowing their absolute minimum requirement was becoming a godly D-rank warrior. Hao questioned the brutal ranking system. Pointing at the flimsy patrolman beside him, he scoffed loudly. He could gnarly someone so incredibly weak was taking the Blazing Blood assessment. The scrawny patrolman smirked, proudly claiming he was a tough human punching bag. Rui quickly chimed in. He was joining the logistics squad, not the front lines. The combat trial was entirely unnecessary for him, but the patrolman proudly declared that logistics faced the exact same battlefield horrors as the vanguard. So soon enough, Hao might owe him his life. With the journey dragging on, Rui decided to drop some crucial world-building intel. She revealed that awakened humans, those blessed with supernatural arts, were officially crowned as true warriors. A warrior's aura dictated their tier, divided into 6 ranks: S, A, B, C, D, and E. The elite headquarters judged everyone through a strict power scale. The absolute core foundation? Raw physical prowess and boundless stamina. Meanwhile, the monstrous aberrations fell into 5 terrifying tiers: Scout class, Hound class, Overlord class, Behemoth class, and the world-ending Calamity class. Naturally, a basic E-rank rookie could easily slaughter a lowly Scout class monster in combat. Moving upward, D-rank elites hunted vicious Hound classes. C and B ranks clashed with terrifying Overlords. A ranks battled towering behemoths, while only godlike S ranks possessed the insane power to face a Calamity class and survive. Beyond raw power, a warrior's beast core affinity ultimately forged their true hidden potential. Hao immediately questioned this mysterious beast core affinity. She explained that only hellish monsters, warped by the Crimson Mist, possessed innate and deadly magical abilities. Human warriors, however, could only steal those powers. They must absorb a slain monster's core to awaken their own lethal arts through a dangerous beast core armament. A warrior's physical flesh, innate talent, and sheer dumb luck all dictated their sync rate with these demonic cores. Perfect harmony meant god-tier skills, but fail to sync with a core, and you would be forever cursed as miserable E-rank trash in this brutal world. Suddenly, the armored convoy halted. Arrogant city guards blocked their path, claiming the roads were completely jammed with heavy traffic. They audaciously demanded the convoy take a detour. The crew was stunned who dared defy the elite Special Response Unit. The smug guards claimed they were also on official business, acting utterly untouchable and leaving no choice. A sleek white car bearing a green intertwined vine logo glided past. Rui's eyes narrowed, wondering why a Green Vine Group VIP was lurking here. Danger hung heavy in the air. An hour later, they finally breached the legendary Blazing Blood entry assessment site. The towering proctor barked at the recruits. Blazing Blood was humanity's ultimate shield and the absolute sharpest executioner's blade of the Special Response Unit. He was Ling Yongxin, the merciless head examiner and a terrifyingly powerful A-rank vanguard. He crushed their egos instantly. Noble backgrounds meant absolutely nothing here. They would bow to his absolute law or perish. He warned that nepotism was a death sentence. He did not care if they were royalty or street trash. If they lacked raw talent, they should abandon all hope of joining Blazing Blood. With the brutal rules set, the punishing physical gauntlet officially began. The first task was a 50-kilogram weighted 100-meter sprint. Hao exploded off the line, crossing it in a blinding 5.10 seconds. Next were the electromagnetic gravity lifts. Jaws dropped as Hao effortlessly hoisted the crushing 100-kilogram weight. The striking test was an absolute joke. His fist completely shattered the reinforced testing machine, rendering his monstrous impact score utterly unmeasurable. Merely 10 minutes later, he casually informed the stunned head examiner that his brutal trials were already completed. Yongxin verified the impossible, 198 points. The crowd gasped, as the legendary rookie record was previously a mere 140. Accusations of cheating violently erupted. A jealous recruit stormed up to Yongxin, furious about the shattered record being completely unfair. This snake was Zhang Jin, the arrogant younger brother of the notorious Chishi City Guard captain. He flatly refused to swallow Hao's god-tier results. But Yang Xin coldly shut him down, stating every single frame was strictly recorded on camera. The examiner glared, daring Jin to accuse him of backdoor corruption. Jin instantly backed down, masking his venom with fake curiosity to save face. Pivoting to Hao, Jin asked if he hailed from the Chishi City patrol team. Puzzled by the question, Hao simply nodded yes. Jin flashed a toxic smile, claiming he merely wanted to warmly greet a fellow brother from their shared hometown. But behind those snake-like eyes, lethal malice brewed. He craved bloody vengeance for his older brother's past humiliating defeat. Hao's survival instincts flared. The sudden hometown connection felt exactly like a venomous trap. Yang Xin quickly warned Hao that the snake was Jin, a spoiled, rich noble from the Chishi City Defense Force. Hao did not recognize him at all. But hearing that toxic name confirmed one thing: the entire Chishi Defense Squad was absolute, corrupted garbage down to its very core. Moments later, the merciless examiner projected the final physical test rankings for everyone. Rank 30 was claimed by Zhang with a measly 89 points. Meanwhile, the arrogant Zhang Jin proudly secured third place with an impressive 123 points. The runner-up was Ying with 135 points, but Hao crushed the competition, taking first with a staggering 198. A blonde woman's eyes sparkled with sheer delight. She only took this exam for amusement, never expecting to witness such an overwhelmingly powerful rookie. Her scientific curiosity ignited to study him. This was Ying, an elite senior researcher from the powerful Technical Intelligence Bureau. Inside a dimly lit dorm, Jin gritted his teeth, reporting to a shadowy figure through his tablet. Furious over losing the top spot, he violently cursed the two absolute monsters who appeared out of nowhere. But the chilling voice snapped back. Without his brother acting as the Green Vine Syndicate's attack dog, he wouldn't even qualify. The warning was absolute. He had exactly one shot at this, and failure meant catastrophic consequences. He swore to infiltrate Blazing Blood for his brother. Later, Examiner Yang declared the Beast Core testing phase flawlessly simple. Candidates simply needed to equip the testing wrist guard and lock a Beast Core into place to begin. Affinity below 40% meant instant elimination. For the clueless rookies, Yang broke down the absolute laws of Beast Cores. Only terrifying Hound-class aberrations or higher could forge these crystals of pure power. The more nightmarish the monster, the more devastating the core it drops. By fusing these cores with aberration armaments, mere humans could wield monstrous, superhuman abilities. Black cores dropped from common hounds. The legendary hierarchy escalated through rust red, blood red, pink, peaking at the mythical gold tier. Every warrior's affinity dictated their fate, awakening unique elemental attributes bound by their innate potential. From destructive elements to battlefield control. The testing wrist guard was merely the weakest tier of armament. It offered zero combat power, serving purely to measure their dormant affinity levels. But surviving this trial to join Blazing Blood meant earning elite weapons and top-tier cores. The brutal affinity trial began. The very first candidate locked in, scoring a pathetic D rank at 39%. Absolute despair crushed him. He had placed 5th in the physical exams, yet failed here. This soul-crushing test was worse than fighting monsters. The next rookie survived with a solid 56% D rank. Tears of joy streamed as his Blazing Blood dream materialized. Then, Jin stepped up, eyes burning red. Snatching the jet black stone, he slammed it into the gauntlet, commanding the fierce energy to submit. A staggering 65% D rank. The crowd gasped, shattering last year's top rookie record of 56. This practically crowned him king, Jin sneered, branding everyone else worthless trash beneath his unmatched talent. Hao watched the arrogant fool descend, only to be cornered by Ying. She asked about Chishi City. As the Bureau's ultimate master of intelligence, she found his hidden monstrous strength utterly fascinating. Slipping past her omniscient radar was nearly impossible, a feat that genuinely impressed Hao's guarded mind. She cornered him with devastating logic, linking him directly to Chishi City's bizarre crimson mist explosion. Hao played the fool, but she smirked. His denial meant nothing to her blazing, undeniable fascination with his secrets. Seizing the momentum, Hao challenged this intelligence queen for crucial intel, and she eagerly accepted. But there was a catch. Defeat her affinity score, and she'd spill any classified secret his heart desired. Her name echoed across the hall. Stepping up, she boldly declared she would obliterate Jin's untouchable record. Hao watched with intense intrigue, while Jin barked furious insults at her absolute audacity. Twirling the abyssal stone, she snapped it into the gauntlet. The screen exploded with a monstrous 78% D rank. Utter shock rocked the hall. Recognizing her elite identity, she flashed a triumphant, radiant grin. Strutting down the steps, she maliciously rubbed her crushing victory in Jin's face, igniting his explosive rage. Jin vowed to destroy Hao and this arrogant girl alike. Finally, the examiner called Hao's name. Witnessing her terrifying potential, Hao realized her intelligence network was real. Ying teased his mounting pressure. To uncover his missing sister's fate, losing was not an option. He confidently told her to watch. Master Rui estimated his latent power at C-rank minimum. This test core mirrored the energy he previously devoured. Adrenaline surged as he locked the crystal into his armament, bracing to reveal his world-shaking potential. A guaranteed C-rank awakening. He pictured their jaws hitting the floor at his squad leader tier strength. But suddenly, the system violently glitched. An unprecedented anomaly. The screen flashed a miserable 0%. Jin howled with cruel laughter, while Hao stood dumbfounded. Suddenly, his wrist guard erupted with blazing crimson mist. His very cells were violently consuming the beast core. Ying gasped at the absolute 0% compatibility. The lowest historic record was 1%. She frantically recorded this miracle, knowing the old man would be utterly thrilled. A sinister smirk crept across Jin's face. Without hesitation, he loudly accused Hao of stealing the beast core. Captain Yongshin instantly barked orders, demanding Hao reveal his wrist guard and the stolen prize, but the core had utterly vanished. The furious captain demanded answers. Sweating bullets, Hao awkwardly stammered that he had absolutely no clue where it went. Panic set in. Without a brilliant lie right now, he was destined for a dissection table. He rolled the dice. He bluffed, claiming the core triggered a beast morphing skill, flashing his demonic claws. Jin stumbled back in pure shock. Confusion morphed into dread. Yongshin instantly unsheathed his weapons, broadcasting a high alert warning to the entire squad. As recruits desperately retreated, Ying's eyes sparkled at the majestic beast transformation. Meanwhile, Jin suspected a horrific monster infection. Yongshin roared for everyone to step back, ready to execute the threat. Cutting through the tension, Ying desperately shouted out to Hao. Hao casually responded. The veteran captain froze, completely stunned that the rookie still retained his human consciousness. Playing it cool, Hao explained the core's power had forcefully burrowed straight into his flesh, triggering this bizarre mutation. Ying let out a massive sigh of relief. A pure transformation skill without mindless rage? This was a legendary first in history. Yongshin lowered his guard, declaring the kid had struck absolute gold. Retaining sanity post-transformation was practically a myth. Such god-tier rarity blew everyone's minds. Yet, Hao narrowed his eyes, wondering about the true identity of this overly knowledgeable girl. Flashing a mysterious smirk, she claimed total omniscience. Yongshin then dropped the bomb. She was a prime blazing blood candidate and an elite bureau scientist. Not to mention, her father was Major General Jin Ancheng, the supreme commander of the entire technological research division. Pouting in frustration, she scolded the captain for ruthlessly shattering her carefully crafted aura of mystery. Cutting the banter short, Yongshin sternly demanded the beast core back. A cold sweat dripped down Hao's neck. He frantically confessed that it was not a matter of greed. The damned artifact had permanently fused with his very being. Jin overheard this juicy secret. A sinister plot hatched in his mind, handing Hao over to Green Vine for brutal experiments. At the high-tech medical bay, advanced scanners meticulously analyzed Hao's mutating body. The elite researchers stood absolutely paralyzed. A beast core physically rooting itself into human flesh? Surgical extraction was now completely impossible. They turned to Director Jin for guidance. His eyes gleamed with manic curiosity, realizing this boy held unfathomable, world-shaking secrets. This was Major General Jin Ancheng, the feared deputy head of the Technical Intelligence Bureau. Two imposing figures barged in, fiercely demanding a complete background check on the anomalous rookie. They aggressively questioned if the elite Blazing Blood Squad would actually reject a recruit falling below the sacred 40% compatibility threshold. Lieutenant General Song Leon, the supreme commander of the Special Response Unit, fiercely ordered them to drop the riddles and spill the truth. Having personally forged this detection tech alongside Greenvine, Ancheng knew the terrifying truth. The boy's baseline was absolute zero. Unable to contain herself, Ying practically begged her father to stop stalling. The agonizing suspense surrounding Hao's true potential was suffocating her. With trembling hands, he revealed the impossible. His compatibility readings were completely beyond human comprehension. It completely obliterated the 100% theoretical limit. Recognizing the monumental stakes, Leon instantly summoned Yongshin. Meanwhile, trapped within the scanner, Hao watched in awe as his core shifted from pitch black to blood red. Had it consumed the lesser stone? Devouring that monstrous overlord class core previously had granted him a divine skill, fully awakening the dormant crystal within his very soul. Now, swallowing this low-tier energy source yielded no new skills. But it massively fortified his original core, purging the deep shadows. It forged into a rugged, rust-red gem. His maximum crimson mist capacity skyrocketed, pushing absorption to terrifying new heights. The crystal stabilized into a hardened, blood-iron hue, heavily textured like ancient rust and scarred with mysterious, dark impurities. The undeniable truth clicked. Devouring deadlier monsters was his one-way ticket to absolute, unrivaled supremacy. Back at the Blazing Blood Fortress, Rui fiercely clashed with Leon. Having discovered Hao herself, She aggressively demanded he be placed under her personal command. The general ruthlessly ordered her to mind her defiant tone. He coldly questioned her bizarre obsession over a mere C-rank underdog. Yet, she stood her ground, declaring she swore a blood promise to recruit him. She begged her father not to turn her into an honorless liar. But Leon fired back. A true warrior's absolute loyalty belongs to the nation, never to an individual. Laying down the absolute law, he declared Hao's fate permanently sealed with Yongxin's squad. The decision was final. Would she seriously ignite a civil war among squad captains over a single rookie? He barked a final, undeniable order to retreat. Swallowing her pride, she obeyed, but a rebellious new strategy was already forming in her burning heart. Inside the Blazing Blood Lounge, Ying delivered thrilling news to Yan Hao. She revealed their rookie squad's target, a newly spawned beast nest between Lake and Redstone City. Pulling strings, she joined him. Yan Hao was now a rank C hunter in Yongxin's elite unit. Instructor Yongxin later briefed the team. Their sole objective? Investigate and gauge the true danger. Stay sharp, he warned. The Crimson Mist mutates everything, even basic nests. Ying, a rank D senior researcher from Technical Intelligence, officially joined their strike force. Data analysis was her absolute specialty. She explained that beast nests fell into 4 distinct tiers. Threat levels ranged from low to extremely high, including various deadly hybrid classifications. Their target was classified as a low-tier hive, structurally simple but deceptively dangerous. Its labyrinth-like tunnels concealed a deadly nightmare, massive swarms of bloodthirsty stinger bees. Millions of workers shielded the elite soldiers. Yan Hao scoffed, assuming one hunter could torch it. 3 armored vehicles felt like overkill. But Ying grimly warned him. These weren't garden pests. Suddenly, the driver panicked. Peering outside, Yan Hao froze. These monstrous insects were absolutely gargantuan. Ying was completely right. These Scout-class iron bees were pure, flying nightmares. The driver, a newly promoted special response rookie, screamed for everyone to brace for impact. A barrage of stingers rained down. Ying knew their vehicle's armor would shatter under this bombardment. Yan Hao boldly volunteered to intercept the swarm, the perfect stage to test his newest technique. Melting his car door into a weapon, he leapt out. "Take cover!" he roared, charging the monsters. The rookie driver stared in disbelief. Ying proudly revealed it was his unique transformation ability. During his hunter assessment, he absorbed a beast core, originally only mutating his own physical form. Extending his aura to morph physical objects was unprecedented. His newfound weaponization skills left her thrilled. She desperately needed to record this combat data. He was the perfect research subject. Suddenly, a vicious green projectile pierced Yan Hao's arm. This hidden aberration possessed terrifying power. His defenses were utterly shattered. He frantically scanned the battlefield to locate this invisible sniper. A war of attrition would kill him. He shouted a warning. A hidden elite stalked them. "Stay hidden," he ordered. They scrambled behind boulders, but one panicked recruit broke formation. Believing fire would repel the swarm, the fool charged out despite Ying's desperate, agonizing screams. Green spikes instantly impaled him, erupting into deadly flames. Yan Hao frantically demanded the sniper's location. "It is a Hound-class queen," she gasped. "That venom instantly melts any armor below rank C." A Hound-class mutant here? The intel was a catastrophic failure. This was no low-tier nest. Leaving the scout drones to them, Yan Hao locked eyes with the queen. Ying eagerly assisted. As a wind elemental awakened, she channeled her mana, unleashing a raging tempest that scattered the drones. The queen finally emerged from the shadows. A colossal, menacing monstrosity radiating pure killing intent. Twisting the door into a devastating dual-bladed spear, he hurled it with earth-shattering force. The steel ripped through the air, striking dead center. Yet, the monstrous queen barely flinched. How could a Hound class possess such overwhelming defense? Realizing the horrific truth, Ying screamed to stop it. "It is evolving into an overlord class," she cried. But with zero aura, the exhausted Yan Hao collapsed. Lacking ambient crimson mist, his mana was completely dry. He deeply regretted not conserving his strength. Ying smirked at his pathetic state. "Playing dead already? Want me to give you mouth-to-mouth resuscitation?" "Not interested in kids," he fired back. Annoyed, she tossed him an energy bar to recover. He stubbornly claimed his exhaustion was not from mere hunger. As they snacked, surviving reinforcements arrived. Checking their status, Yan Hao brushed off his injuries, commanding the squad to secure the bloody battlefield. They needed a forward camp and urgent evac. Ying confidently smirked, confirming the distress signal was sent. They soon discovered the wounded queen had retreated deep into her formidable stronghold. With internal crimson mist levels still surprisingly low, their biosuits would let them safely breach the hive. Hao urged patience, waiting for backup. But she saw a golden opening. The queen was bleeding, making it the perfect chance to strike and harvest its data. Plus, the nest's danger rating had just spiked to a solid high-medium tier. Conquering a mission so far above their pay grade would guarantee them a massive bounty of rewards. Meanwhile, deep inside the Special Response Unit headquarters, Chief Leon revealed a bitter truth. The top brass were fiercely tearing each other apart. Their faction wasn't the only one hungry to forge him into an elite frontline weapon. A terrifying syndicate of rogue scientists was practically drooling to chain him to an operating table. He ordered Yongxin to guard Hao with his life. The boy's potential was absolute. Suddenly, an emergency alert shattered the tension. Leon barked at him to answer. The report was terrifying. Hao's rate had just skyrocketed to maximum danger, and Ying was already trapped inside. This was absurd. Leon knew Ying's chaotic reputation, but she was flawless on the battlefield. She would never gamble her life. A dark conspiracy was clearly unfolding here. He commanded the closest Blazing Blood squad to deploy instantly. Captain Rui would spearhead the rescue mission without a second of delay. Priority 1, extract Ying and Hao alive. Priority 2, burn the beast nest to the ground. Right on cue, Yongji stormed in. Yongxin froze, thinking his brother was bedridden. Leon coldly confessed he assigned the boy to Rui's squad. Sensing tension, he demanded if there were objections. Yongxin yielded, sending his brother to serve as Rui's right-hand man. The realization hit Yongxin hard. The chief had orchestrated this dangerous partnership from the very beginning. Leon manipulated the pieces entirely for his daughter's sake, utterly baffled by her deep obsession with Hao. Back in the abyss, Hao and Ying navigated the nightmare. They alone possessed the heavy armor capable of surviving the lethal crimson mist. He prayed for an easy hunt. The energy spike seemed stable, but if that wounded queen reached the overlord stage, their survival odds would plummet to 0. A chilling aura washed over Hao. Freeze! The queen emerged from the shadows. But she had mutated into a monstrous iron-armored needle queen. Her titanic size and razor-sharp stinger practically screamed that an overlord-class nightmare had awakened. Ying watched in absolute horror. How did it evolve so fast when the toxic mist levels were supposed to be harmlessly low? Worse still, her entire legion of poison needle scouts had evolved into bloodthirsty killing machines. The horrific truth dawned on her. The crimson mist had already breached lethal thresholds. Why in the world had their safety scanners remained silent? Violent coughs racked her body as she collapsed. Someone had deliberately sabotaged their protective gear. The suit's filters were fatally compromised. A chilling thought crossed her mind. A traitor was lurking within Blazing Blood. As the deadly fog thickened, Hao grabbed her hand and initiated a desperate retreat. Secretly, an inner thrill coursed through him. This overflowing mist was exactly the power source he craved, but his priority was keeping Ying alive. He needed a clear conscience to unleash his true might. Suddenly, a massive boulder crashed directly into their path. He shoved her into the debris' hidden hollow. The airflow was clean enough to keep her breathing until help arrived. She desperately commanded him to radio base for new hazmat gear, while he stood alone against the monstrous swarm. She vowed to continuously broadcast the nest's horrific data and keep command updated on their desperate stand. Her eyes burned with fierce intensity as he turned away. "If you die out there, I'll drag you back from the depths of hell." He promised his safe return, but the monstrous queen had already locked onto her prey. Hao stood his ground against the overlord-class tyrant and her terrifying army of armored scout bees. Power surged in his veins enough to shield those he cherished. He echoed the sacred vow he once made to Shuer. Failure was simply not an option. The deafening swarm blackened the sky. His remaining red fog reserves meant one final strike. Failure meant absolute death. Explosive energy gathered fiercely in his palm. With a primal roar, he unleashed his ultimate trump card, the Crimson Condensation Blast. The devastating shockwave was so fierce, it illuminated the entire hive from the outside. He prayed it was over. But as the smoke cleared, the demonic bees emerged without a single scratch. Hao's heart dropped in pure disbelief. Just 3 minutes prior, an enraged Ying rapidly rewired their sabotaged analyzer, forcing the system to read the mist's true toxicity levels. The screen flashed bloody red maximum toxicity limits violently breached. The lethal numbers were doubling the danger zone. Suddenly, a massive pressure wave slammed against the cave walls, signaling a catastrophic explosion outside. This was the absolute worst-case scenario. Hao's blast had forcefully churned the deadly fog, amplifying its density. Gorging on this concentrated demonic mist, the monstrous swarm triggered a terrifyingly instant evolution. The weakest scouts mutated into vicious hound-class monsters. They lunged straight at Hao. Their numbers swelled, their power surging. Despite the thick crimson fog, his energy drains far outpaced his recovery. At this rate, he'd be sucked dry. Watching in pure dread, Ying doubted his endurance. Then, horror struck. His neck showed signs of severe crimson mist corrosion. Someone had deliberately sabotaged his protective gear. The scanner's numbers spiked out of control. If this kept up, Hao would become a mindless monster. She had to scatter that toxic aura. Channeling her power, she unleashed a massive wind blast. Finding the perfect opening, she detonated the gale. Hao blinked, stunned as the suffocating red haze vanished. Cursing his severed power line, he braced himself. The swarm fired toxic green needles, striking his raised forearm. The barbs pierced his flesh, sending paralyzing shockwaves through his veins. Suddenly, another lethal volley rained from behind. Evasion was impossible, but abruptly a massive figure materialized, taking the brutal barrage head-on. Youngji had arrived, a C-rank powerhouse whose mastery over bodily fortification and enhanced senses was absolute. Channeling an overlord pangolin core, his defense was legendary. He roared at Hao to snap back into reality. The swarm closed in, only to be instantly obliterated by dazzling laser strikes. Rui had entered the chat. A C-rank elemental goddess, her mastery of electromagnetism granted terrifying skills, from devastating railguns to absolute magnetic control. Powered by a behemoth-class eel core, she crackled with energy. Hao demanded to know her purpose here. She smirked, declaring that headquarters dispatched them for immediate reinforcement. "Wipe out these disgusting insects," she commanded. Her elite squad surged forward like an unstoppable tide. Vanguard units unleashed blazing infernos, scorching the front lines. Meanwhile, Rui ordered the battered duo to retreat and heal. They immediately fell back, but the demonic queen bee had already locked onto their fleeing auras. Panicked shouts erupted, but Rui barked at them to keep sprinting. An overlord-class monstrosity was completely off their radar. She had no choice but to unleash her ultimate art, electromagnetic annihilation. A blinding high-voltage domain erupted, vaporizing and paralyzing everything caught inside. The devastating shockwave violently collided with a shadow. The smoke cleared, revealing the colossal queen bee from their intel. The vile beast was desperately fleeing toward the ceiling. Numbed by the lightning, its escape was doomed. She rallied her troops to crush the remaining swarm and secure the wounded. Hao watched her overwhelming power in sheer awe. Youngji puffed his chest, bragging about their legendary exploits in Redstone City. And terrifyingly, Rui was completely unarmored, fighting without her signature combat suit or primary weapons. This wasn't even her final form. Scanning the chaos for Ying, Hao quickly signaled her location. Ying yelled out, half joking that a 10-minute delay would have meant collecting her lifeless corpse. She demanded a lavish feast upon their return, cashing in the favor for her previous heroic rescue. With the injured secured, Phase 1 was a massive success. The squad eagerly awaited their next bloody objective. Her new directive was absolute: burn the nest to ashes. Meanwhile, Hao desperately absorbed ambient crimson mist to recharge. His previous devastating cannon strike hadn't killed the royal pest. He needed to execute a flawless second attempt. Just as his power peaked, a bone-chilling screech echoed. Everyone instantly tensed, weapons drawn. The vile monarch began devouring the nest's entire crimson aura. It was undergoing a terrifying evolutionary breakthrough. Scanners screamed red, detecting a level 4 ascension. Ying stared in disbelief at the endless influx of toxic energy. This wasn't a normal nest at all. A deafening roar shattered the air, summoning a nightmare legion of hound-class bees from the shadows. Hao ordered the vanguard to hold the line. He alone would face the demonic queen, clutching a suicidal trump card. Rui commanded absolute fire superiority to shield Hao's advance. If he failed this strike, the entire squad would be slaughtered. His furious claw strikes merely scratched its armor. Pouring his soul out, he unleashed another raging crimson blast. The explosive shockwave leveled the battlefield. As the dust settled, the monstrous queen mercilessly countered with a deadly stinger assault. Raw energy blasts alone were useless against this titan. He desperately needed a lethal piercing strike. Searching for an equalizer, his eyes locked onto a severed, razor-sharp stinger embedded nearby. He ripped it free, wrapping it in a blazing bestialization coil. Wielding it like a divine blade, he charged through the brutal onslaught. Funneling every last drop of his crimson aura into the makeshift sword, he prepared a devastating, karma-fueled counterattack. Gripping the hilt, he unleashed a heaven-severing strike to end the beast. A massive shockwave ripped through the sky. Only the Queen Bee's Crimson Beast Core remained in the aftermath. He snatched the Overlord-class core. But the moment his fingers brushed it, devastating energy surged into him, sending a sharp, agonizing jolt straight through his chest. The overwhelming power instantly flooded his internal core. His mortal limits were completely shattered. Below, Rui and the vanguard decimated the remaining swarm. But Ying's voice trembled, sensing Hao's life force rapidly fading away. Rui desperately commanded a rescue. But as the dust settled, she found him collapsed. She screamed his name, panic shattering her usual calm demeanor. Hao was completely unresponsive. The medics connected him to the scanners, revealing a violently spiking heart rate and dangerously chaotic neural waves. The lethal red mist had infiltrated his system. His sanity was hanging by a single, fragile thread. Rui ordered Youngji to activate the medical pod and sever his neural links. They urgently retreated to their temporary fallback camp. An anxious Special Forces operative questioned Hao's condition. Yongji gritted his teeth, firmly insisting that their comrade would pull through. Recognizing Ying's technical mastery, Rui immediately tasked her with calibrating the life-saving pod's delicate parameters. The pod whirred to life, pumping heavy anesthetics into his veins. But Ying warned this was merely delaying the inevitable tragedy. They desperately needed to reach headquarters for advanced healing. Rui understood the grim reality all too well. Within his consciousness, Hao was suffocating. A monstrous reflection of himself demanded he surrender his humanity and embrace the horrific beast awakening. Darkness crept in, making him believe this was his end. Profound guilt struck as his family flashed before his eyes. He was ready to succumb to the abyss. Suddenly, visions of his parents urging him onward pierced the dark, alongside Shuer's tearful reminder of his sacred promise to return alive. The memory burned bright. She was still faithfully waiting. Spectral voices of his comrades echoed, demanding he wake up. Ying's fierce refusal to let him die resonated deeply, fueling his flickering spark of life. The truth struck like lightning. His allies were still waiting. The war was far from over, and an unbreakable will to survive ignited within his soul. He had a sister to find and a world to protect. Refusing defeat, he realized this burden of destiny belonged to both his human soul and his dark counterpart. With a legendary roar, he shattered the phantom's suffocating grip. He summoned spiritual chains to completely bind his monstrous reflection. He commanded his shadow to yield, as their comrades awaited them both. The dual entities seamlessly fused into one ultimate force. True power always demanded a devastating toll. He understood now that every martial breakthrough was a deadly dance upon the edge of the abyss. His mind awakened, yet a paralyzing weight kept his eyes shut tight. At that exact moment, the armored convoy was already tearing across the wasteland. A catastrophic sandstorm obliterated their visibility entirely. Pushing the vehicles through this apocalyptic weather was a sheer suicide mission. Yongji spotted ancient city ruins exactly 3 kilometers ahead for emergency shelter. Turning sharply, Rui demanded a crucial vital check on Hao's condition. Ying confirmed his life signs were steady, yet he remained trapped in a deep coma. Seizing the tactical advantage, she commanded the entire convoy to plunge into the ruined city. The heavy trucks soon breached the decaying stone perimeter. 3 armored transports rumbled inside. The exhausted vanguard was ordered to disembark and recover. But Rui's battle-hardened instincts screamed danger. She urgently commanded Ying to run a full sweep for structural integrity, deadly crimson mist density, and hidden thermal signatures. She then deployed a defensive perimeter around Hao's medical pod, strictly enforcing the absolute mandate handed down directly from high command. But lurking in the shadowy upper floors, malicious eyes tracked their every move before striking. A lethal volley of arrows rained down. Catching the threat, Yongji roared for everyone to take evasive cover. A projectile struck Yongji, but his rock-hard aura deflected the blow. Ying gasped, realizing the deadly shafts were dripping with highly toxic stinger wasp venom. Suddenly, a colossal boulder plummeted from above. Rui's commanding voice echoed, ordering an immediate scatter. Launching a devastating kick, she blasted the pod to safety. She instantly dodged away right before the massive rock struck. Shrapnel exploded everywhere as Yongji shielded Ying with his indestructible body. Then, ruthless wasteland scavengers emerged from the dust, intent on slaughtering them for loot. The raiders hurled mysterious glass vials. As they shattered, a sinister, emerald-green vapor violently erupted into the surrounding air. The horrific truth dawned on her. It was Dominator-class beast extract. This monstrous gas caused instant crippling paralysis upon inhalation. The bloodthirsty bandits charged. A colossal brute wielding a savage battle axe locked his murderous sights on Rui. With phantom-like agility, she dodged his strike and delivered a devastating low kick, blasting the giant straight through the opposite barricade. But horror struck as she noticed a grappling hook latched onto the pod. Her legs suddenly gave out as the insidious neurotoxin paralyzed her entire body. With their sinister traps secured, the scavengers ruthlessly yanked the heavy cable. Believing this heavily guarded metal coffin held priceless artifacts, the raiders dragged it away. Desperate, Ying dragged her paralyzed body forward, screaming at them to unhand her comrade. A treacherous arrow pierced her fragile ankle. Blood spilled as she collapsed, drowning in sheer despair while watching Hao get violently abducted into the shadows. Meanwhile, sealed within the stolen pod, a glowing U-shaped insignia violently manifested across Hao's chest, radiating from collarbone to collarbone with dark, unspoken power. A strange mark traced her shoulders, emitting an eerie glow. Despite the agonizing pain, her only thought was saving Hao. "Stay with me," Rui commanded, forcefully yanking the arrow free. Guilt consumed Rui. Losing Hao and seeing Ying wounded was an absolute disaster. She snapped the shaft, quickly binding the horrific injury. It was a temporary fix. She ordered Ying to stay completely still. Through the pain, Ying realized the terrifying truth. The bandits had laid a perfect trap. Something felt incredibly wrong. How did those scum anticipate their exact route? Yangji soon broke the silence. The perimeter was secure, but the poisoned vagrants had already slipped away. A raging sandstorm howled above. Escaping with Hao on the surface would be absolute suicide. Only one path remained, straight down. Her squad discovered a rusted elevator shaft. Scans confirmed it led to the enemy lair. Rui instantly gathered her elite strike force. Next up was brutal close-quarters combat to drag Hao back. She assigned a defense squad for Ying, while Yongji and Team B prepared to descend into hell. Her glare was absolute. Failure meant certain death. A desperate support member begged to join the vanguard. Rui firmly rejected him. Plunging into an unknown abyss required pure fighters. Team A would guard him and Ying topside. Yet he refused to back down. Hao was his sworn brother, his ultimate savior. He absolutely refused to abandon him to the shadows. His burning loyalty finally swayed Rui. "Stick to my shadow," she warned menacingly. Deep below, the vile bandits dragged their prize home. They grumbled under the massive coffin's weight, yet greed sparkled in their eyes. They expected a legendary treasure inside. A massive brute barked for space. He hoisted a heavy battle axe and violently smashed the mysterious pod. The bandit boss demanded the loot immediately. However, he quickly realized this shell was forged tougher than a titanium vault. Steel shattered and sledgehammers snapped, yet the seal remained flawless. Suddenly, a blonde youth stepped up, promising to crack it if they ventured deeper into the abyss. The boss spat in disgust. The lower levels were nothing but a desolate dead end. Every scout who wandered down there vanished without a trace. Cruel laughter echoed around the boy, but he frantically swore a master key was hidden below. Enraged by the defiance, the boss violently hoisted the kid by his collar. Gasping for air, the boy proposed a desperate bargain, his freedom for cracking the seal. If he failed, they could torture him to death. The boss accepted, promising a bloody execution if this was a trap. Inside the dark void, Hao heard everything. He had breached the enemy's heart. With his beast core evolved, his senses were terrifyingly sharp. He felt the layout of the underground cavern, and more importantly, mapped every surging drop of power within his own body. His beast core glowed rust red, surging with 67% crimson fog energy. His beast form now boasted lethal claws and tangle. Furthermore, he awakened explosive crimson fog bombs and a deadly poison gland. The venom belonged to the slaughtered queen bee. Meanwhile, ignorant bandits reached the lower depths. An ancient behemoth fossil loomed in the darkness. They pressed a blade against the boy, demanding absolute obedience. The trembling youth pointed toward a colossal ribcage, claiming the artifact was hidden there. Greedily, the boss commanded his grunts to haul the pod over. A massive explosion shattered the chamber. The henchman flew backward as the impenetrable shell blasted wide open. Rising like a demon, Hao unleashed his lethal toxic mist. The bandits collapsed, gasping for air. Hao smirked. This ultimate crowd control ability was utterly flawless. The boss froze in horror, never expecting a living human inside. He screamed that this was a cowardly Trojan horse tactic to raid their sanctuary. Hao just stared back, completely clueless about their wild conspiracies. Flexing his aura, the boss declared himself a mighty D-class warrior. He roared that crushing a pathetic insect like Hao would take zero effort. Furious over the perceived ambush, he launched a merciless killing strike. Hao simply unleashed another toxic wave and drove a devastating punch into his jaw. The D-class warrior slammed into solid rock, cratering the cavern wall. A terrified whimper echoed through the dust. Hao locked eyes with the trembling blonde kid, daring him to fight, but the boy instantly fainted from pure terror. With the trash disposed of, Hao scanned the grim environment. The cavern overflowed with mutated beast skeletons. Inspecting the shattered bones, a chilling realization washed over him. These horrifying fractures proved none of these monsters died peacefully. This was no random grave. It was a blood-soaked arena designed for death matches. A familiar electromagnetic crackle echoed in his ears. Even 10 floors down, he recognized Rui's voice. He smirked at her fiery temper. Above, Youngji hardened his flesh and bulldozed through a hail of bullets. A brutal kick shattered the enemy line, securing the perimeter. Yet Hao remained missing. "Tear this place apart," Rui commanded fiercely. Terrifying mutated beast claw marks scarred the ruins, whispering of a dark secret hidden within. As they approached the abyss, a soldier confirmed their tracker sensed Hao deep down below. Then, in a terrifying heartbeat, the signal vanished completely. Rui feared the pod was shattered, sealing Hao's doom. Yet suddenly, Hao leaped from the abyss, carrying an unconscious blonde warrior, and casually greeted the dumbfounded crowd. Our main character has returned with an awe-inspiring power awakening. Thank you all for tuning in. Please check out our next legendary video, and I will see you next time. Support our realm by joining the Summon Club membership. You can also show support by smashing that like button and staying absolutely legendary.